What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it didn't take long for Nintendo's online playtest, the big mystery, to leak out online. In fact, it happened immediately, and we got all kinds of details around what is now actually a game to go over. Also, we are going to be talking about Nintendo with those Game Freak leaks because more information is getting out there, even around a new title that's been discovered from the Pokémon company. And then we also have the Steam Deck 2, which obviously will be heavily anticipated when Valve is ready to release it, but they're looking for, well, the next big generational leap for them to do that. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps it a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with Sonic Cross Shadow Generations. It's out later on this week, but we did get review scores going up yesterday, which we can see posted up. This is over on Metacritic, and it's currently sitting at an 80, which is actually pretty good. Now, that's based on the PlayStation 5 version of the game currently, as 53 reviews came in there, 1 came in on the Xbox. So unfortunately, can't really speak to say any kind of performance metrics on the Switch version, which I know people will look at and wonder how does it function there usually with the aging hardware technically from Nintendo at this point. But at an 80, we'll say for the PS5 version compared to Sonic Generations, that's like 3 or 4 points above that. So seems to be working here in the right direction. And I guess even just in the terms of 3D Sonic games, that would be one of the higher reviewed titles. And it seems like with most of the reviews, they're pretty happy with some of the newer stuff in terms of like the shadow content. So that is actually pretty cool there for Sonic fans. This might be another game that I'll look at and say, okay, there's a lot happening right now. It'll go into the backlog and I'll get to it eventually, but I am interested to see what they have here with some of these new levels for Shadow. And Sonic Generations, looking back on it, was actually a really fun release when it came out way back in the day where I played it on the Xbox 360. But let me know if you're excited for Sonic Cross Shadow Generations later this week. Also, we did have some new free trials that were announced for Nintendo Switch Online, which we could see posted up on their official account, where they say NSO members from October 23rd, 10 a.m. Pacific to October 30th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific, you can download and try the full A Little to the Left, Curse to Golf, and Vampire Survivors games at no additional cost. Out of these three, I'm more familiar, I guess, with Vampire Survivors, which is a heavily addicting game, and honestly, at the price of Vampire Survivors, I mean, it might be one you just end up trying for a bit. Okay, yeah, I'll pick this one up because it's even on sale, that being 15% off. Actually, Curse to Golf is 75% off as well, and A Little to the Left being 40% off. But if you've never tried Vampire Survivors, there's probably a good shot to just do that again, free of charge. Give it a shot over the next week and see what you think. Oh, and it looks like Mario and Luigi Brothership has leaked out pretty early, I mean, weeks early at this point, but we do have some new information coming from this, which we actually have some box shots here. This was shared, we can see, over on Twitter X from Nintendo. Oh, first off, on the back, we do have a shot that says Unreal Engine, so this is another UE game there from Nintendo, and Acquire, who's actually working on this, co-developing with Nintendo, and they, of course, did Octopath Traveler, Tenchu, and big shout out to Way of the Samurai. So, I mean, it's interesting because it's an art style that when I saw it, I didn't immediately think Unreal Engine. And I mean, in some sense, I'm thinking, okay, that's actually a good thing because we do look at a lot of Unreal Engine games and it kind of has that Unreal Engine aesthetic to it. But we have been seeing more and more titles do things to make it more unique. And especially like when I saw Dragon Quest XI, for example, that was one that I said, oh, wow, okay, this doesn't look like it's using Unreal Engine when it is. And so at least in that sense, we are seeing some more creativity around it. And this is another example of that with Brothership. Of course, it leaking out this early means that you'll probably see it online here pretty soon, and then spoilers all over the place. So I guess take this also as an early warning for that. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo's Playtest that's actually scheduled to kick off later this week. And, well, over the weekend, they let people start downloading the 2.2 gigabyte application. We didn't really know what this thing was, right? Okay, it's a feature, it's an application. Or is it a game? Because it actually seems like it's a big social experiment MMO style game that doesn't even necessarily have a name at this point, but we got a ton of details because, of course, as soon as Nintendo had this thing go live, people were sharing images of the website. We actually had this thing data mines. There's a lot of information getting out there slowly over time, kind of trickling onto social media and timelines and stuff, which, as we can see here, this was originally posted by Ethan. Hope Nintendo doesn't kill me for this. Well, they got to, because, yeah, media not displayed pretty much across the board, and it's from a report from the copyright holder, which, yeah, Nintendo told people not to share any of this stuff. I mean, no one signed an NDA, but Nintendo can technically go around and just start copyright striking any of the imagery or anything really being put out there for this game, I guess. So I can't technically show you much. I can just give you a random Switch trailer here or something, because I did actually go through and write down a bunch of details around this, again, game, I guess, because, again, we'll go through this. Goal of the game is to fully develop a massive, expansive planet. That's right, they showed us that kind of wireframe planet in the quick marketing slide they had for this. That seems to actually line up here perfectly. We're going to go around grid by grid and seemingly start populating and growing out this world. As you progress across the planet, you discover new lands, enemies, resources. You have these tools called beacons, and they purify your plot of land, basically, in that world. And when you do that, there's like a zone that you make with that beacon, and you can start editing things and changing stuff up. And it kind of is like Minecraft. You can have it set so other people, when they enter your zone, they can't move stuff around or wreck anything you've created. There's also a dev core, which is like the social media or the home base where you can gather with other players. You level up your character there. You get items and other things. You also have dev points, and these are your experience points. You level up and you gain, they say, convenient items for development. I just assume on these plots of land that you purify, as they say, of this world, you'll be able to build out more and more stuff, and maybe get to the point where people are building out entire bases that they can have people, like, invite people over, and I'm sure a lot of stuff would be built out from these different creations and things that you level up and gain. They also have Connex points, and these raise your connection level, giving you access to fun community-related items, which you seem to earn these just through interaction with other players. So there is definitely a focus on just playing with a bunch of people, as this kind of veers into the realm of almost like an MMO for Nintendo, as we've seen them invite thousands of people to this, and it seems like they're going to be testing their own servers with a lot of this content, I guess, to see if it holds up. And user-generated content is a focus. But, in the most Nintendo fashion ever, you need to get a license by completing a test to make sure you know the importance of respectful communication, which I'm sure Nintendo has a lot, they do. They have a lot of experience with user-generated content going wrong on things like the 3DS or even with the Switch. So, yeah, I'm sure they at least want to put a test in front of you. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out in the long run, as, well, people can still technically drive all over the place if they want with their car, despite having a driver's license. And we still don't have a name for this game. All right, so that's the other thing. This is, I mean, it is just a playtest. They don't really have a name for it necessarily. They probably don't have all the textures and stuff done as well, because there were some screenshots, and it does look pretty basic in, like, its visual style. But we will find out more as playtest begins on the 24th. And I say that because it took about 5 minutes for a lot of stuff to start appearing online, images of screenshots and all the information they were giving to the people who signed up, and they asked people not to give that information out. So naturally, you'll see, I'm sure, gameplay clips going around, maybe even the skill trees or different things that they have there as you level up, and maybe just like guides even for it. So I don't know what the end goal is for Nintendo with this. Is this just a game that they'll eventually release for all Nintendo Switch Online members and attach it to that membership? Or will this just turn into a full-fledged retail release? It's definitely very different for Nintendo in the sense of creating what sounds like an MMO, or some have even related it to like the Strand system for Death Stranding. It's something I wouldn't mind checking out, but I didn't get into the playtest, so I'll just have to observe technically from the outside. But I am curious to see how this one works out, and if it eventually turns into a game that all of us can either buy and check out, or even maybe just download as part of an NSO benefit. So I guess we'll find out more again as we get later into the week. This is all slated to start up on the 24th. Next up, let's talk about something else I technically can't show you on screen because Nintendo and Game Freak are out there in force right now when it comes to the leaks and stuff around Pokemon. A lot of this does seem to be coming down to the anime and a lot of the plot details getting out there, and even, I guess, the company behind that sort of striking a lot of that stuff down. But even like games and screenshots and unfinished projects that are going around online are also being pulled down by Nintendo and the Pokemon company. So there's one that popped up, and one of the reasons I wanted to point it out is because it did seem to originally be related to the idea of Pokemon ZA, Legend ZA, being leaked online, because apparently there's a PC build for it that needs certain NVIDIA driver. It's a whole thing there, but people were thinking it might actually leak out, and there were starting to be some video of different gameplay clips, and people were wondering if that was ZA. No, it actually appears to be something else. And this game was titled, or is titled, Pokemon Rodeo. I say was because we don't know if it's a game that is actually going into production. This seems to be another situation of a game that was just being tested internally as just an idea or a pitch to see if maybe it could be pushed out to a full-fledged title. It's called Pokemon Rodeo, and I guess the idea is you ride around on your Pokemon in like an open world style area. There's real-time battling, and there was like one section of the map that was built out with Scyther popping up in the land, and I guess you can catch them or fight them. And it wouldn't shock me if this is, again, just something people that they were playing around with within Game Freak as an idea for a game, or even just a feature for a game, because we've seen them allow you to have your character ride around, say, on a Pokemon that you've captured. So then maybe trying to build off of that further, but could it be turned into a full-fledged game? I mean, maybe, but it's also possible that it was just left on the cutting room floor. I believe in some of the marketing stuff they had mentioned that had leaked out that like Sword and Shield was like the most recent game at that time. So it's not necessarily a new thing that they were working on, and probably was something that was just kind of left behind. But it's still interesting to see kind of the development thought and process, even a lot of the stuff that doesn't technically make it to market, just to see where sort of their mindset was and what ideas they may have wanted to expand on. Next up, let's talk about the Steam Deck and what we assume to eventually be the successor, the Steam Deck 2. Now, we haven't had a big jump in terms of a new revision or anything for it. I mean, the OLED is really cool for the screen quality, the clarity, the higher refresh rate, the better battery life, but it wasn't a generational leap in terms of raw power. In fact, you look around and you see like the ROG Ally, the Legion Go, those use the AMD Z1 Extreme chips, and technically they do better in games. But because Valve is working closely with AMD as well as software on their side with Proton, they seem pretty content just working to build off of what they already have for years to come. And in fact, they've continued to double down on that. Most recently, we can see this was posted up by reviews.org as they were talking with the Steam Deck designer Lawrence Yang, saying, "It is important to us, and we've tried to be really clear, we are not doing the yearly cadence. We're not going to do a bump every year. There's no reason to do that. And honestly, from our perspective, that's kind of not really fair to your customers to come out with something so soon that's only incrementally better. So we really do want to wait for a generational leap in compute without sacrificing battery life before we ship the real second generation of Steam Deck. But it is something that we're excited about and we're working on." So there you go. They are working on the Steam Deck 2. Go figure. The current Steam Deck, we don't know sales numbers. I'm not saying it's, do tens of millions or anything, but in their mind, where they're just trying to continue expanding out the Steam, the app, the OS, to reach more customers who maybe aren't as into PC gaming as a sense of, I'm going to build a custom PC, or I'm going to buy a pre-build and sit at my desk. I'm sure there are many people who just want to use the Steam Deck on the couch as a pick-up-and-play device, and it's fit that need well. But in Valve's mind, do we want to release one every single year? As we've already seen, we have the Asus ROG Ally, we had the newer one that came out, the Ally X. It seems like they're also working to make another one next year, as AMD is looking to push the Z2 Extreme, which that'll be interesting just to see benchmarks and what it's capable of. But I get the idea of, do we really want to flood the market and have a release every single year, or build on the product we have now for multiple years, like an actual console generation technically, and then release a major step up from there, and then build on that for so many years through software optimization and give customers value from that device for many years to come. I actually don't mind that and kind of prefer it. And really the idea of doing an OLED screen and building that way with battery life in mind, I think is actually better. Like, the Steam Deck is still a good device if you buy it now. There's a ton of games on Steam that work beautifully on that system. So yeah, why would they look to replace it when you see also eventually they can even make some money on it as the margins maybe get a bit better behind the scenes for that. But still, the Steam Deck 2 will be interesting when they are ready to reveal it. If I had to take a guess, I'm actually thinking 2026 for this one because they are going to make the chip alongside of AMD, and it seems like AMD still has some work to do on their side when it comes to efficiency, especially with battery life and the power. But the Z2 might be a good first step for them, and I'm sure something that Valve is already talking to and keeping in mind with AMD. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Naughty Dog and their game that's coming up that we've been hearing whispers about, but really haven't had anything tangible necessarily when it comes to what the direction is for the game. We've heard that it's maybe like a sci-fi project. You would definitely want it to be significantly different than what they've been doing with something like The Last of Us, for example, right? That is a more gritty, realistic sort of take on like the apocalypse and that kind of thing. I don't mind the idea of them jumping forward into the future for sci-fi and maybe it being a bit cleaner and shinier and that sort of thing. But we are at least starting to hear some whispers around maybe some of the makeup or the direction of the game, which we can see this posted up. This is over on VGC, who transcribed this, saying according to MinMax founder Ben Hansen, who said he'd received some information about the secretive project from somebody very in the know who worked on the game, again this being for Naughty Dog's next title, saying, quote, "The tone was like, you are all not ready for how amazing this thing is going to be." And the tone was, "I'm not going to say the game that they reference to compare it to because I don't want people to be like, MinMax said it was going to be exactly like this, but they compared it to a game with a lot of player freedom." Hansen added that the game Naughty Dog's upcoming title was compared to wasn't Hitman. Now, I think it's pretty obvious that the person who worked on it and was very happy with what they did is going to tell you that it's an amazing title. Everything's great. It's incredible. Game of the year, even though we haven't seen it yet. But on the other side of it, okay, player freedom being a big focus, they mentioned Hitman, and when I think of player freedom, it can go a couple of different ways. Open world is one I'm sure that immediately springs to mind, and yeah, obviously that could be what they're referencing here. But when they reference Hitman, it's kind of the idea of you have a set goal, how do you get there, and then you can do all kinds of different things, different paths to get to that point. So Hitman, you could put like Deus Ex out there. I saw some people say, well, what if it's like that Skyrim style where it's open world, but there's also still a bunch of different things you can do with your character to get to that endpoint, right? Through like creative means. And yeah, the thing with Naughty Dog is usually their games are pretty well focused. They're narrative driven. So I don't know if I would want them to get too outside of the box with that and do big open world for no reason at all. I think I'd like the idea of them still kind of keeping it slightly confined, narrative driven, but then maybe come up with ways for it to be heavily focused on player freedom to where you can get to that end goal in all these different ways. And maybe that's why Hitman came up here, by the way, even though it's not like Hitman, but you know, kinda. See, again, I'm intrigued by what Naughty Dog has here, just because it seems like if it would be, say, a sci-fi project, it would be just way different than what we've had previously. But I guess we'll see hopefully soon, because while we have Ghost of Yotei coming up, there's still many other studios at Sony that have been quiet for quite a while, and maybe they either end this year with a bang or kick off 2025 with one. We'll see. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, which of these November game releases are you most excited for? Mario & Luigi Brothership at 50%, Dragon Quest III HD2D at 27%, Stalker 2 15%, Lego Horizon Adventures at 8%. You know what's weird? I noticed for some reason the poll now on YouTube only allows me 4 choices. I don't know why that is, because it's been 5 for the longest time, and all of a sudden I'm down to 4. I did see some people down in the comments mention Marvel vs. Capcom Physical Edition. That was a big one, by the way, and I know people are excited for that. Technically, it's already released. I get it, but it's still pretty cool to have that one physically, especially on a cartridge or a disc or something, because again, what we've seen in the past, that game seems to get delisted, so it'd be good to at least have that physically on the shelf so you can play it even 10 or 15 years from now when it's gone once again. Otherwise, though, yeah, Mario & Luigi Brothership looks fun, but come on, Dragon Quest III HD2D has looked awesome since they've shown it, and that's probably the one I'm really looking forward to right now. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Obi-Wan saying, I think you should replace F on these polls for didn't watch. That'll likely be a more accurate answer than F. Now, I'm sure there's some people who legitimately believe a show is an F letter grade, right? But now I'm in trouble because I can only do 4. So do I just go A, B, C, didn't watch? Because I feel like I have to at least leave the D option in there. It's tough now. YouTube is constraining the polls here now, or maybe that was just a glitch for some reason yesterday, and when I do a poll next, it'll be 5 spots, which we do need that F letter grade bad. So hopefully YouTube can come through and give me that 5th option back. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card for you, or maybe want to hear more about Spider-Man 2 going to PC and just some of the future ramifications and strategy that Sony appears to be implementing here, I'll leave that right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.